Welcome to Fuel Your Drive. Guys, what's going on? Welcome to Fuel Your Drive. We have another incredible episode in store for you today. And today we actually got a good friend of mine. But I want to tell you a little bit about him before we get started. So my guest today built a company out of a wreckage of the Hurricane Andrew. Literally, in 1994, he founded Evaniclean and grew it into a national franchise with 240 locations across 37 states. He even went undercover on his own company for CBS's show Undercover Boss. That was a great episode, by the way. In 2009, he sold Evaniclean. Then, this past May, in one of the most remarkable comeback stories ever. I love this. I was so fired up when I saw this. He brought it back. 7 years after walking away, he brought it back. Today, he is the founder and CEO of Homefront Brands. What a great company, let me tell you. Now, home to 6 brands in over 700 territories across North America. He's an author, certified stud, speaker, and a guy who's given back through St. Jude's Hospital, which is incredible. He has Operation Homefront, and I'm super happy to have him here. So, guys, let's welcome my friend Jeff Dudan to the show. Jeff, welcome, my man.
Best intro ever.
Best intro.
And I remember the day when I got my certification for stud. It was a big day for me, and I appreciate you digging that out.
Now, listen, I wanted to put it in there honestly because I remember that day too. And, I actually have it pops up on my calendar every single day, multiple times a day. So it just reminds me about it. So anyway, all right, well, let's get rocking and rolling. Thank you so much for being here. This is going to be a great episode. And, obviously, I want to start off let's kind of talk a little bit about that intro and a little bit about, the come up, right? When you started, and let's walk through that. And, then I want to get into the juicy stuff, but let's start with, Evaniclean and how you started through Hurricane Andrew, because the story is incredible.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Josh. Great intro. Always good to spend time with you, and love the energy. So I was an athlete, and I chased a football around to 3 colleges, actually. I ended up at App State University, the giant killer out there, on a football scholarship, and I was broke, like 5 T-shirts broke, like, car one-way trip broke. And, when you're on a football scholarship, it's great during the season, but I needed money. So I started the painting business when I was in college and kind of became an entrepreneur doing that, painting student housing apartments with basketball players, football players, and wrestlers that were taking classes over the summer. We'd paint 20 apartments in a day. Made a lot of money doing it. So when I graduated with my marketing degree, I was already making more money than any job that I could get. So, buddy called me and said, Hurricane Andrew hit South Florida. They were looking for people to help the people of South Florida recover. So my business partner and I, we rolled down there. I told my girlfriend at the time, I said, I'll be back in 3 weeks. And I came back 3 years later after cutting my teeth in the disaster restoration business as a early 20-year-old guy, and started the business in 1994 with 3 partners. And then I moved back up to the Carolinas in 95. And we ran a direct business for about 10 years. And then, I bought my last partner out in 2004. And, the business had scaled. At that point, we were a mold remediation, air duct cleaning, disaster response, water damage, emergency type contractor, but we were doing government contracts. So huge scale air duct cleanings, military bases, VA hospitals. We were working in California. We were working in Hawaii. We were working in the Caribbean. So, we were kind of a romping and stomping environmental services restoration business, but I had this franchise vision, and, a lack of focus will always lead to a lack of greatness. And we weren't putting any focus on it. So Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005. And it was, the first disaster that I did owning the company 100% myself. We responded down there and did about $100 million worth of work over the next 4 years. And then I was driving back in the middle of the night from Gulfport, Mississippi, where we were doing a huge government project, back to Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was driving back because I was missing my son's first football season. So, I had 3 children at the time. They're all grown now. It's been a minute, right? So I'm an empty nester now, but I had 3 small children at the time, and I was missing my son's first football season. And so I had this inflection point driving through Atlanta about 2 a.m. to try to get home for that game. And what I realized is that, history was going to repeat itself. I didn't go to 3 schools over 5.5 years to get a 4-year degree because I was a good citizen or a great student, right? I was, I had grown up in some challenging circumstances. And, with me being on the road all the time, I was an absentee dad, and that's not what I wanted. So based on just that one simple belief, I made a decision to sell all of our company stores under the franchise model. That's called refranchising. So I sold our offices in Orlando, in Charlotte, North Carolina, in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Columbia, South Carolina, and committed to the franchise model. So we sold those businesses in 2006, 7, and 8. In 2009, we launched to the market. Perfect timing after the great financial crisis. People looking for needs-based, essential, high-margin services like restoration is. And man, we hit it, and we hit it right. Timing was good. The product was good. And we ended up with those 240 locations. There's about 145 owners operating in those businesses, a sizable business. Then I sold it January 1st, 2019 to Home Franchise Concepts out of Irvine, California. So that was that. But, when you get in these inflection points, Josh, I know we're all in them. And if you look back at your life, there's, 4 or 5 decisions we make that kind of determine our path. Maybe it's who we marry, where we go to school, the job we take, partnership we pass on or we do. And when you're in these inflection points, there's 3 things that I've found that will tell you you're in one. Number 1, there's people involved. People that you care about, people that you're responsible for, people that maybe you want to do something with, or sometimes people that you might want to get away from. There's an adventure or an opportunity to do something great. If you've got a vision and a belief, or at least some sort of a destination, there's a chance to accomplish that. So an adventure, an opportunity. And then there's going to be a risk of loss, because to do anything great, you've got to be able to, you got to give something up. You've got to create first, I just did a talk for a group, and, I said, there's 3 things that if you want to create a different future from yourself, but you feel stuck, there's 3 things. You need to create space for it. You need to take responsibility. If it's up to you, don't let external factors, change how you feel or push you off your path. Let's see, what was the third thing? I don't even remember what the third thing was. It must have been a great talk. So, but at the end of the day, you're in these inflection points, and you make these life-changing decisions. So that's how we did it. And, and it was a great ride. And then, subsequent to that, been building a lot of businesses in the franchise space, service companies, brands, and things like that. But, franchising has been good to both of us. It creates accessibility to businesses for families on Main Street, USA. It allows people to, to step into that entrepreneurship and to create a future for themselves and those they care about.
100%. Well, so much I want to talk about here. So first thing I want to kind of get in, and thank you so much for sharing all that. So you started out, you were a college athlete, you said, right?
That's right.
Running a painting business. What was that first taste like of entrepreneurship? Like, what did you learn from that? And how did you know? Because it's like, Jeff and I actually just did a podcast on Jeff's show recently. And we were talking about, like, I started in franchising. So I want to kind of hear from your perspective, like, how did you know, like, all right, this is it, right? Like, this is what I want to do, because I feel like so many people out there, and I know so many people listening to this right now, they just don't have the will to make this step. So, like, let's walk someone through, because I really want people to learn from this and get something from this podcast. Walk through this step, how you knew you wanted to do it, and, like, what gave you that, like, okay, I can do this.
So one of the predictors of entrepreneurial success is an early entrepreneurial experience in life. So I was always scrappy, making money, washing cars, doing things. And also my dad, he had a small engineering firm. It was kind of a failed firm. I think it kept going for like 8 years, but it never really got off the ground. But like, I watched him work. I watched him work weekends, late hours, to do whatever could to keep the business going and keep food on our table. And I really respected that. And then look, growing up, I also had to work, so I worked in the trades. I worked concrete, union concrete, flat work. I worked for a painting contractor. I was a dog in Chuck E. Cheese. I mean, I was always hustling. So in addition to going to school and playing sports, I was always hustling. So when I got to App State, And I got there, and again, I was broke, but I did get that football scholarship, and I realized that I want to stay here over the summer. This is where I want to be. I don't want to go back to Chicago and get all caught up in the things where I came from. But I didn't have any money, and so for me, starting a business was natural. It wasn't even a question because I could wait tables, and I think minimum wage was like $3.45 an hour plus tips. And I'm like, I can't live on that. I have to do something to take control of this. So I looked at all the things that I knew how to do, and painting was the most accessible. So that was it for me. And I remember too, and how did I get into insurance? Like, how did I first realize insurance work? So we were quoting like, dollars labor per hour plus the cost of the materials and whatever. And then one of the boosters in the football office, they called and they knew that we were doing this painting thing. And they said, hey, I've got some water damage on my ceiling from a leak. So I go out to their house and I measure the ceiling, and my partner and I, we put together an estimate for like $500, $600, a few gallons of paint and, whatever we were charging per hour and a little bit of materials and things. And I got him, the insurance adjuster called, and he said, are you guys the painters? I said, yeah. And he said, well, we're going to pay for it. It's a covered loss. It's a water damage from the leak. And I said, do you have an estimate? I said, yeah, we've got an estimate. He goes, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you just measure it and tell me how many square feet it is? And it was like, I don't know. I gave him the square footage, and he ran it through their little pricing thing, and it was like $1,900. We were getting ready to charge them $500-$600, and they were going to pay $1,900. And I'm like, wow, $1,900? And he said, yeah, that's what I'm going to send them a check to them for you for $1,900 for doing the work. I'm like, okay. So then I realized, and at the end of the day, we were just underpricing. I mean, insurance companies, they pay the right amount. They certainly don't overpay. But at that point, I was just like, you get yourself into these situations, and you can make a lot of money. And so that was kind of my first taste of like, I kind of got hooked on like trying to figure out ways to make money with that business. And it was shortly after that where we went out and we solicited all the property managers that were managing all the student housing apartments. Think about it. We're on top of a mountain in Boone, North Carolina. It's not a major city. So the painters they were using were like coming down out of the mountains, and they were hard to manage. They weren't getting the projects done. So we took advantage of that. We put the crews together, and from all the athletes taking classes over the summer, and that was it. So from there on, I was pretty entrepreneurial minded. And I'll tell you another thing too about this franchising thing. So when I left to Florida, my younger brother Mike was going to the same junior college that I went to. And I said, hey, why don't you come out here, get in-state tuition, get your driver's license. You can come back here to school next year, and you could take over the painting business. I had bought a house. You could live in my house, and you could put yourself through college. He needed a hand. So I was, he was kind of stuck there, and he didn't have a clear path. At that point, we didn't have any money in the family, and he wasn't going to be able to go to school. So he came out. When I went to Florida to chase the hurricane, he ran the painting business with my partner's brother, and they paid us. Like, we still made money in that business because we paid them kind of a wage plus a profit share. So it was kind of our business. So that was the first time I'm like, look, I can create a business. I can create customers. I can create the systems, the processes, and the brand. I can give it to somebody else to run, and I can still get paid. That's franchising. And that was, was my first little franchising. And Mike went on to graduate with an accounting degree. He ended up as the CFO of the Carolina Panthers for 16 years.
Oh, wow. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, now let's talk. Now we're in franchising. So you start Vaniclean now. You grew it to a very large business. Walk us through, like, what was the hardest part of scaling that? And, like, I like to really get into, deep into, like, the actual part of the business where people don't understand. Like, I know you're talking about you were driving back, thinking about, almost missing your son's football games 2 a.m. Like, people, entrepreneurship is very glorified online. People think it's like this is an incredible thing. No one understands. Like, I can relate how many flights canceled, driving home 3 a.m, 2 a.m. Like walk us through a little bit of an overview of how hard it was to scale, what type of sacrifices had to be made, and obviously everything wasn't great because everything is never always great. And people like to think it's great, but I want people to get a clear picture of how hard it really is and why you got to really be, strong here to be able to be successful in any business.
Look, when we started this business, we were paying ourselves $250 a week. I was living in Orlando with my roommate was my business partner. The other two guys, lived there. They were older guys, so they had careers. They had some money. But I mean, we lived on Lake Killarney off of Lee Road in Orlando, Florida, and we rented a house there. And man, we ate turtles. I mean, like I could tell you what, two Whoppers with no cheese, no drink, no fries, $2.10. Like that's I had $2 and I had $2. I had a dime, and I would go, and every day, and they would know me. They'd be like, I get it. No cheese, no drink, no fries, $2.10. And that's how we had to start it. And I tell you what, it was some of the happiest times of my life. I felt like I was building something. I was living an adventure. I was living in Orlando, Florida. I had come all the way from Chicago out to the top of a mountain. Now I'm living in Florida. It was really an adventure. But the restorations business is a proving ground. Most businesses, there's a lot of scheduled element to it. When you're in the restoration business, every call is an emergency.
Yeah,
you wake up in the morning and you don't know what your jobs are going to be, where you're going to go. So you're constantly just reorganizing crews, redistributing things. So, I say if you can do the restoration business, you can literally do anything because the demands of the schedule and the emergency and the urgency nature of it. And then if you're traveling to do disasters, and you have to travel with diesel generators and diesel tanks and pickup trucks and campers and all your food and all your water and protection. I mean, there's it's dangerous sometimes to go into a hurricane area before all the services are restored. So, it was always a challenge, but I think that was kind of the nature of the business. And then, you've got the people piece that you need to do well. You've got the leadership piece. How many times we almost ran out of money over 25 years. I can't even tell you, man. I mean,
I could tell you, I'm with you on that. Amen. Amen.
Oh, I had to refinance houses sometimes. And, because we were being a government contractor. I mean, we go out and do multi-million-dollar projects. And then all of a sudden, the government would shut down and checks aren't coming out. And it's like, okay, I owe $700,000 over the next 6 weeks. Where am I going to get that money? And
not to interrupt you, but let's stop for 1 second there, because that's a very important thing I want people to hear, because I have this sometimes with some of my franchise owners. Like every business owner goes through this, right? You made it, right? So walk us through, you're at that moment. What do you do? You're not getting paid by the government, and anyone can relate to this. And you might be having a cash flow issue. Everyone knows I love Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. The man suffered in severe debt more than half his life. And look at him today. So walk through, we're now in Jeff's world. What did you do during that moment? How did you hang on? How did you know it was going to be okay? Walk us through that. I want people to understand that.
All right. So you have to make a decision to your level of commitment when you're in a business.
Love that. Love that.
And, one of the things that I would do is I would look around the table. I would look around my office and I would look at the people and I would say, okay, we're up against it. I could sell half the company right now, reduce all my stress, but also reduce my upside, maybe control and things like that. There's always ways out, right, to get out of things, especially if you got a decent business. But I would look around the table and I'd say, okay, am I personally willing to bet my house, my future, my kids' college educations? Am I willing to bet everything that I have on that this group of people is going to make this play over the next 30 days? And we're going to, if I tell them what's going on, are they going to help me? And then you get, if it's time for a holiday bonus or whatever it is, I was putting those on cash advance credit cards. I'd borrow $20,000 on a Citibank card, cash advance, no interest for 9 months or something like that, just to make sure that the people were taken care of. So, as a business owner, you've got to decide like how deep are you willing to go? How much do you believe in the business? And that's a different thing for everybody. I mean, comfort, people's level of comfort and discomfort and their level of fear is something that there's really no place for in entrepreneurship. I mean, you have to be willing to be fully committed, because businesses are going to face these challenges. Sometimes it's just timing. Sometimes it is a market condition. It's outside of your control. Sometimes, look, you catch a lawsuit or a claim from a customer that, something happened outside of your control, but like you're still responsible. And I mean, these are all the things that business owners face on a daily basis. And it really just comes down to the fact that it's not fatal. It is none of it's fatal. It's not going to kill you. It is not going to kill you.
It's funny. So I love this, by the way. Speaking of lawsuits, I just got served with a lawsuit literally yesterday. Some woman from one of my corporate territories claims that we paralyzed her, and there's a little nick on the van. It's literally this big. So this is what it is. These things
there's no legs in that claim.
No, there's not all, but it's funny. So I just sent something out this morning to everybody, and I said this. I want to read this to you. You're going to like this. Nothing sent to break you has. Everything that's tried has failed. In fact, if you're honest, all of it has only made you stronger. You've already proven you're unbreakable. So what are you so worried about? That literally sums up everything Jeff just said. It's not fatal. It's going to pass. And I'm sure you can agree with this. This too shall pass, for success and for failure. And you will not find one business owner, and you'll agree here, Jeff, probably, right, that hasn't gone through it.
Yep. Yeah.
Every successful person I've ever talked to has suffered. It's a part of it. It's a part of it. You got to go through it. But what he just said right there, I want you to click on your app right now and go back 20 seconds and listen again. It's not fatal. Super powerful, man. Super powerful.
Yeah, and look, your will is an inexhaustible resource. So when we're talking about resilience, we're talking about like how strong is your will, and that's actually a trained thing. I mean, it's mental toughness, it's mental discipline, but it's also there's a physical aspect to it. I mean, you've got to show up fit. And you got to show up with energy. And, your will is an inexhaustible resource. So like, when are you at your best during the day to best take on the hardest things? Mm-hmm. And, how long can you tolerate things that are against your nature? I'm an empath. I like people. So I like people to be happy. But when people aren't doing the things that they're supposed to do, then you've got to rush to conflict and you've got to deal with those things. So, you've got to have, broad shoulders, you got to have a strong back. And as a leader, you need to take all of that on your shoulders and you need to shoulder that burden. And it's really just honestly, you could say, don't worry about it, but that's not accurate, because you can't just not worry about it and not address it. You actually have to find a way to rush to conflict and to deal with it, but yet have it still not break your spirit and test your will. And that's really just a learned thing. And the best thing to do is just to jump in the deep end and start swimming and get into a business, put yourself out there, create a vision for yourself that's 10 times more ambitious. Don't do something incremental, right? You got to be, it's our role in life is to be more ambitious every single year, because when you're wildly ambitious, it will expose the capabilities that you don't have, that you need, or the people that you need, as opposed to just some incremental thing. I'm going to try and replace my income. No, you're not going to try and replace your income. You're going to try to build a $10 million business. And guess what? If you get to 7 or you get to 5, that's a win, right? But the win needs to be half of what you're trying to do or less. And I mean, if you look at all the entrepreneurs you've had on this podcast and all of the great people that we read about that have done things and that you look up to, they all started with an incredibly powerful and bold future that was incredibly ambitious. And maybe they didn't make it all the way, or maybe it took 5 times as long as they thought, or twice as much, or maybe it took a pound of flesh on the way. But at the end of the day, that's where it all starts. So all of this is trainable. And when you get around people like you, Josh, your franchise owners, the people in your company, and you're constantly giving these people the tools to be great, then then it just comes down to a decision. Like, we are exactly where we are in life. We're exactly where we are based on the decisions that we made or the actions that we took or we didn't take. right? Everybody that's sitting exactly in their car in traffic listening to this, or sitting at their computer, or doing whatever it is, like your decisions and your actions or your failure to act put you exactly where you are. So if that's true, let's just say you want to create a different future for yourself. All you have to do is decide and then start taking actions against it in a disciplined manner. And you will create a different future. It's just math, it really is.
Couldn't agree more, man. Could not agree more. Well said. Well said. All right. Well, we just touched on, growing and scaling. I want to touch on when you decided to go on Undercover Boss, and what was that like? What are some things you uncovered? Because I remember that episode. I watched it. It was a great episode. I think I saw something somewhere that it's coming back to show. I think they're bringing it back, I heard. But walk us through that.
Yeah, so it was interesting. The franchise industry is a really good candidate for Undercover Boss because the franchisees generally know the owner and the founder, but many of the employees don't. So it's a good place where you can kind of pull the ruse off. So we got a call, and I think it was season 7, and they said, look, we have a boss that got cold feet and they dropped out, and we have one spot. We need to film it, and we need to film it like in a month. And as you can imagine, there's 3 inches of contracts to go through. You're signing off all your rights and all the things. But I mean, we said yes. I mean, if I can't find a good reason to say no to things, I will say yes. Now, when you make a decision like that, at least for me, that was a family decision because, we maintained a very low profile here. People didn't understand the scope and size of our business. So, all of the kids were in school. And so we sat down in our little bonus room, and I'll never forget the 3 kids, the family, they were all sitting on the couch, and underneath what they were sitting is a line from my old football coach at App State, Jerry Moore, that says, always do more than is expected. And we had it written in italics, huge, all the way across this wall. It's always do more than is expected. So, and then if you looked at our family values, okay, and if you read my book, Discernment, in there, we talk about our family values and how to use values as a filter in making decisions when you're in an inflection point, right? But it's live fun, be humble, respect others, be a servant leader, trust yourself to take chances, fail fast to move forward, and always do more than is expected. Like that's our family values. Yeah. So if we're going to honor our values and we get this opportunity, I could have wussed out and said, no, we don't want to do it. But I looked at the kids. I said, look, if we get on this show and if this show airs and they're seeing us give away all this money and there's going to be perception that we're wealthy and that we own this big company, I said, things could change for you. People are going to be jealous. People are going to be looking, it'll be all over the news and stuff like that. But if you looked at our family values, trust yourself to take chances, always do more than is expected, fail fast and move forward. That was another one, right? So it's like you can't do that and not take the opportunity to do the show. So if there's, and that's where you can use your values to make difficult decisions. Your values will break the ties. The best things about values is they will break the ties when the path is unclear or a difficult decision needs to be made. You can fall back on those and make that decision. So we made the decision to do it. We went on the road for 16 days, and it was a great episode. It still plays. I mean, it reruns all the time, all over the world, because we can see the chatter when it happens. Hasn't been playing so much lately, but man, for the first, I think it aired. They pushed it to season 8, and it aired in January of 2017, and I mean, my daughter would be like at a hotel at a soccer game, out of town or whatever, and they'd be sitting there waiting to leave, and it would be on the television in the lobby or whatever, and she'd be like, "Oh no!" So, but but it played all the time, and it was a very positive episode, and and if people want to see it, it's hard to find like for free online, but if you go to my LinkedIn, in my video carousel, they're just Jeff Dudan. It's right there, 42 minutes. We put it up there in a Vimeo. And you can just click on it and it'll play, free as can be.
Love that. Yeah. Well, make sure you check that out. It's a great episode. And also make sure you get Jeff's book, Discernment. It's a great, fantastic read. All right. So here's what I really want to dig into. So, all right. You sold Evaniclean. Okay. What was going through your head in regards to like, all right, I sold it. Did you ever think you were going to start Homefront Brands? Like, I'm around so many successful people, and everyone's the same. Like, it's funny. Like, I know someone who just sold his company for $200 million, and he said to me, yeah, I'm going to take it easy. 3 months later, he's on something else. Like he's
Yeah.
like, it's like it's only like he's like, he was called me up one day. He's like, I got into gardening, and I was like, and this guy is like, he's like us, like he's an intense guy. Like I was like, gardening. He's like, yeah, I'm really enjoying life. And then literally a couple weeks later, he's like, yeah, I'm starting this new business. So walk us through, like, you worked so hard, you had all those challenging moments, and I haven't sold my company yet, but I do like run it through in my mind of just the feelings of it, and I'm just curious, like, walk us through, like, when you got to the point where you're like, all right, I'm going to sell this. How did it happen? Were you ready? Did someone approach you? Then walk us through, like, what was your plan, and then kind of transition. What made you start Homefront Brands?
So there's a lot of good points that I think I should make here. Number one of the roles of a business in your life is there's the tax benefits, there's the hedge against inflation, but one of the most important roles that people don't realize that aren't in business, that maybe should be in a Gym Guys or a Homefront brand, is businesses allow you the freedom to pursue your own curiosities. Meaning, you now as a business owner, you're going to join masterminds, you're going to join YPO or EO, you're going to join Strategic Coach or Genius Network, or you're going to go out and you're going to get yourself around all these, you're going to do a podcast, you're going to be talking to people, and you're going to be laying the foundation of what are your fundamentals in how you make decisions. And you're going to be informing that by other successful people that have built businesses and sold businesses before. You're not going to get, like, the problem with advice. The biggest problem, well, first of all, you should never solicit advice. You should only solicit experience, okay? Advice, you don't, and the other problem with it is people tend to solicit their input from proximity. That's the problem. It's your father-in-law, your mother-in-law, the people right around you who have not even touched what you're trying to do. So
I say this all the time, and all the groups are like that. YPO, EO, they're all about experience share. Love that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I joined YPO in about 2015, and I realized I was the only one in there who hadn't sold a business. My identity, the business I'd grown it since I was in my mid 20s, so everything was tied up, and I didn't even have another email address. I didn't. All of my it was like a closet that hadn't been cleaned out in 25 years. So. But when I went to YPO and I started talking to people, like, what's it like after you sell a business? Like, what are the opportunities? And I realized, like, you know what? I'm almost going to be 25 years in this business here in a few years. And I've given it, I think, everything that I can. And if I'm going to have the chance to do something else, again, you have to create space. So I had to create the space. And then also, there's a big check. So, like, then you also have resources and you've created the space to have a chance. And I sold the business ultimately when I was 50. So, so getting into YPO was a big thing, and then going through the process.
Real quick, Jeff, because not everyone understands that. What is YPO?
So YPO is Young Presidents Organization, and I mean some 50,000 CEOs and presidents and founders from around the world. It's pretty high requirements to get into it. It started in New York, I think, back in the 50s or the 60s, and it's really very much a group where you get deep relationships through their forum process with other founders. Now, if you're a smaller business, you can probably get into EO, which is exactly the same format. But I mean, I think your businesses are, in $1 million range there or whatever. Some are bigger, but very similar program. But it's basically a real educational and networking, and also, a collaboration program with other owners. So. Yeah, so you get into the process. Now so we go and we sell the business, and then from there it's like, yeah, my coach told me take a year to do nothing, and I took like 3 days off, and I started all these different businesses. I built a franchise sales organization and a startup business. I did build a fitness concept called Rockbox, and then I also built a company called Beam Sauna.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, so yeah, those have been sold, and I think, and I really want to go, I want to tie this ambition talk out, because I really want to give your audience something of value here. Yeah. All right. And here's an example why you have to be wildly ambitious. When I was a basketball player, we got a new football coach in high school, and he wanted to throw it, and he recruited me off the basketball team to catch because he needed receivers. Before I ever took a snap, I decided that I was going to play for the Chicago Bears. Think about how stupid that is. I've never played one down of football. And I said, but I'm going to play for the Chicago Bears. I'm going to make that ambitious goal, and that's going to be my goal. I'm going to get there. And that safety, tight end, fullback, whatever. And I said, all right. So I started making decisions and actioning against that. So when I went to the Division I school, I walked on, ultimately got kicked out or dropped out after a year, dropped back to a junior college. I realized there was a capability that kept me from getting a scholarship, and that if I didn't solve for that capability, that I wouldn't go anywhere. And it was straight line speed. So I said, all right, what is speed? It's flexibility, strength, and explosiveness. So I joined Taekwondo for 18 months, kicked and stretched and kicked and stretched. I got in the weight room, lower body, and then I saw Walter Payton running up a hill on the news. And I said, that's explosiveness. So I found a hill and I ran up it 1,000 times. And I got just fast enough straight line speed to get a scholarship out to Appalachian State, where I ended up continuing to get faster. And I started my senior year in the backfield as a fullback. So
that's
from
awesome.
a kid that was too slow to get a scholarship to a kid that was starting against Clemson and NC State, walking out of the tunnel, captain, doing running the football. Like that's huge. So question is that a failure? So then I went to this hurricane in South Florida, and I saw that it was all franchise company. It was all franchise businesses. So before I ever started the business that would be AdvantaClean, I decided I'm building a national franchise because I'm too stupid to fail. I'm just too stupid to fail. And so did I think it was going to take 25 years? No, but like we were direct business and partners and this and, trying to figure out the franchise route and not getting there for the first 10 years. And then we built this national franchise company. And when I sold it, so you asked me about Homefront Brands, I said, look, there's a small group of multi-billion-dollar property service franchise platforms, Neighborly, Authority Brands. There's only a couple, okay? So I decided I'm going to build one of those. And so if we're going to be, multi-billion dollars, but I'm going to do it in half the time, this is the power. You have to work backwards from a future. I'm going to need sophisticated, well-capitalized, committed business owners. If I'm going to get committed business owners, then I've got to have a offering that would attract those type of business owners. So I only could go out and buy companies that had $3 to $10 million AUVs, that had demonstrated that people could do, a business that somebody that had a lot of money and had a good track that was experienced in doing. So that informed the businesses, that informed the executive team that I leaded, the business, the operating platform, and all of the decisions. But we've made every decision in this platform against a very specific future that is 2037 to be X billions of dollars, to have this many franchise owners, to have this kind of AUV. So we only make decisions against that. And if you're sitting out there saying, okay, why does that matter to me? Well, let's say you're getting ready to hire somebody. And if you're ambitious enough, you realize that candidate A is good for today, but he's not going to take you anywhere. But candidate B is the one that can get you to where you really need to go. Now that decision is easy to make. So everything starts from working back. So Homefront Brands is the decision to do it was my, I had gone into various different franchise businesses. And we said, this is what we know best. We think services like Gym Guys provides and like we provide are the last things that AI is going to be able to disrupt. People want community. People want to be part of something. People need work done. People need to be healthy. And we said, look, we've got all these other businesses that we could do, but we think home property services is very durable over the next 25 years with the population increase, homes, businesses, expansion, building. So that's what we decided to do. But it all started with a very specific, bold, and powerful future that we've now spoken into existence.
Love that.
And we've gone from 15 franchise owners to 285 owners in under 3 years.
That's incredible. So how did you grow that fast? Is that because of just the relationships you build in the industry over the years? Because someone listening to be like, oh my God, that's crazy. But I want the perspective they put on that so they understand, because I feel like so many people just be like it's almost like when I hate this when people say, in order to be a multimillionaire, you need to have multiple revenue streams. Well, yeah, maybe in like years and years after you perfect something and you're really good at something. But so walk us through that, because I want everyone to just understand this. You started AdvantaClean in your mid-20s. You sold it when you were almost 50, right? So you put in what, 25 years of hard work?
It's 24 years and 11 months, brother.
Okay, 24 years. Listen to what he just said, because someone's going to be like, oh my God, he went from 15 franchisees to over 280. He put in 24, pretty much 25 years of hard work. So you've got to understand, like, You need to develop patience and understand it takes time. Now, because what? You've built those relationships. You know people in the industry. You know how to do it. You could do it faster because you've been through the pain. You've been through the experiences. That's why you've been able to do it so fast, right?
Yeah. And so let's say somebody's thinking about starting their first business and they're going to get into a franchise. Look, even if that business is a push, but you apply yourself to it and you get capabilities and you learn all about you learn about sales, marketing, learn about hiring, recruiting, you learn about customer service, you learn about tech. You are so much better. Like, it's like basic training. Like, nobody is great the first time around it. Like, you got to decide. The decision you need to make is, am I in the game or am I not in the game? That At the end of the day, like, are you in it or not? Once you get in the game, now you're playing the Rubik's Cube of, okay, how do I scale? How do I build? What do I do? Oh, I got knocked back. So yeah, for us, the reason we were able to scale so quickly was because we've done it multiple times. I've had over 8 brands. I've had 800 franchise owners and businesses that I've built and run, not including all the ones that I've advised to, the thousands of franchise owners that I've been, board work, advisory work, consulting work, whatever. But 800 in my companies, over $1 billion in sales. It was, so we knew specifically what we were doing. So we knew who we needed. We knew what we were looking for. But also too, franchising takes money because you have to build all this stuff before the franchise owners come in. And so I think our willingness to clearly invest in infrastructure and people and good brands, that the franchise owners, it checked all the boxes. So we were very fortunate. And none of this happens without incredible franchise owners.
That is so true. And I can really relate to that because I remember when in the early days when I started, I didn't know anything. There was so much, you have to learn. And, as Jeff just said, he paid his dues. He developed those skills. He developed those relationships. And that's why he's been able to do it at such a fast pace. And it's incredible. And, Jeff is the real deal, man. That's why he's on the podcast. So, all right. Well, before we wrap up, Jeff, I want to kind of go into this rapid fire I like to do at the end. All right. So one word to describe a franchise platform versus running a single brand.
Community.
I swear I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. And why is community so important? I know we touched on it, but let's just say it one more time.
Well, look, the question was platform versus single brand. Look, you certainly have a community in a single brand. I was thinking more of a single business versus a franchise platform, but community is everything. At the end of the day, if you want to be a franchisee, if you want to be any business owner, not just a franchisee, I could tell you, actively, positively engaged franchise owners, and this is from a study from Friend Connect of over 800 brands and their franchisees, actively, positively engaged franchisees outperform actively disengaged franchisees by 6.3 times. The reason is this, and I say positively engaged. What I mean by that, you're being a good citizen. You're showing up for the calls. You're helping other franchise owners that you hear struggling of something that you solved last year, and you can help them. You're participating in committees. You're helping the franchisor solve problems. Look, at the end of the day, we're all in this together. But if you're engaged, that means your employees are going to be engaged. And if your employees are engaged, that means they're going to be trained properly. They're going to adopt things quicker. They're going to have a positive attitude. They're going to be more positive out there in the marketplace, and everything is going to go better. If you don't open the emails, if you don't show up for meetings, you don't even know what's going on. You don't have a chance. Like, you literally don't have a chance. Who invests in a business and shows up and doesn't even watch the videos prior to training? You should, at the end of the day, the subtitle of my book is Discernment. It's called The Business Athlete's Regimen for a Great Life Through Better Decisions. The reason I make a distinction about athletes is because athletes train. Look, when I was a football player, we worked out, we did winter workouts. They called them pukers, man. You're running, they're running you inside, they're putting you in hot rooms, and they would run you and condition you and train you until you threw up, right? And then you go out for spring practice and you're out there and you're banging heads and you're doing sprints and you're doing weightlifting in the morning, treatments in the afternoon, looking at film, going out and practicing. And then you got summer workouts, and then you come and you're practicing, and now you're in the season. You do all of that 300 days a year for the opportunity to be in an 8-second broken play, to find yourself in the back of the end zone and to have enough hops to get up and wrestle that ball away from somebody else. You've done 300 days of work for 8 seconds. You know, like that's like the more elite you are in business as an athlete or anything else, the more fundamentals you're training. And that's what it comes down to. Like, it really comes down to your fundamentals. So you asked me about, I forget what you were asking about. I wanted to get to the fundamentals. It's like you, if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to be successful, you are seeking out and learning from people like Josh and people in your community and people in your network and other business owners. Like, what are the fundamentals with they made these decisions? One of my fundamentals is being wildly ambitious. And that is the start of the journey that informs you, how to make all of the decisions that lead back to where you are today, that are going to get you to where you've decided you want to go in the future.
Well said. Well said. It's funny. I just talked about this like 2 weeks ago on a call, that engaged franchisees are always going to be the most successful. Literally said that.
100%.
Next, best piece of advice you would give to someone that's about to open up their first franchise.
Focus.
Love it. What's one thing you would tell 1994 Jeff, the day you founded Clean?
You're going to get fat. I would say, there will be cameras around. You need to take a little better care of yourself. You don't want that evidence floating around for your kids. But I think all seriousness, that is serious, but something maybe a little bit more actionable. Josh, I waited too long. I waited too long to get out and to get into rooms with other business owners. I tried to do it all myself. Business owners that start, they're like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And you try to figure it out. And the first thing you say is how. The first question you need to ask yourself is who? Who would know how to do this? One of the most successful business person I know is a guy named Tommy Mello. And he had a garage door business, and he went out and he stayed at the houses of the top 5 or 10 HVAC, hundreds of millions of dollar HVAC businesses, and said, tell me how you built your business to hundreds of millions of dollars. He went out and got the knowledge first. When I started our franchise business, I tried to start it like in the mid 2000s, but we didn't go even hire anybody that had franchise experience. We wrote our own UFOC at the time, our franchise offering circular, which turned into the FDD. We were so proud that we could figure this out ourselves, and pride cometh before the fall, man. We are so stupid in thinking that we could do that. So now, the first thing I do is, try to, if I have a problem that I can't solve. Now, AI is really good for this, but I try to go out and I get around people that have done it before, that can that have the experience that can inform my thinking. And I know you're looking for short answers. That wasn't one.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, where can people find you? Where can people get your book? We already talked about where people can watch the Undercover Boss episode, but share where, people can reach out to you if they want to.
Book's available on Amazon. I got another book coming out. It'll be my 3rd book coming out in the spring. I'm super excited about it. It's going to be targeted. It's going to be called Unemployable, and how to make yourself unemployable in the face of the AI barrage and the assault on all these careers. So step-by-step process on how to do a lot of things we talked about today. But you can get the book Discernment on Amazon. You can also go to my Instagram, just Jeff Dudan. Click on the link, put your email in, and I will email you immediately a free copy of it. Connect with me on LinkedIn, just Jeff Dudan, if you want to watch the Undercover Boss episode there, or you can go over to jeffdudan.com if you want to talk to me about speaking, or you've got a business that you want me to talk with you about, or you're interested in incredible property service brands, go to homefrontbrands.com and check out our brands and fill out a form, and we'll be back in touch with you right away.
Love it. Love it. Well, guys, what an amazing episode. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. You provided so much valuable insight to our listeners, which I am so excited about. And I can't wait for people to just jump in, listen to this, and going to get a lot of nuggets out of it. So appreciate it again, guys. Until next time, remember to fuel your drive. See ya. Legend. Do you know my name? My name is Legend.